Hey man, it's me, Kevin Smith, Silent Bob, and all those terrible Jay and Silent Bob type pictures, man. You're listening to Drop the Mic, the only podcast that I listen to that I'm not a part of. Every podcast I listen to, I usually talk on it, but not fucking Drop the Mic. That's where I'm like, let me hear what the boys have to say. And now, we drop the mic.
It's funny you should ask that question, Bill, because actually there was something a little strange about the way Mr. Nightingale left, yes.
Really? What was that?
He came in this morning about 4:30 a.m. with two men. Big guys. I mean, they were very well dressed and very well spoken, but they weren't the kind of people you'd like to fool around with, if you know what I mean. Anyways, I noticed Mr. Nightingale had a bruise on his cheek, and to be perfectly honest, I also thought he looked a little scared.
Scared?
Yes. He said he wanted to check out, and then he went upstairs to his room with one of the men. And the other guy stayed down in the lobby and settled his bill. And then when they came back down, Mr. Nightingale tried to pass me an envelope, but they saw it and took it away and said that any mail or messages for him would be collected by someone properly authorized to do so. And then they just took him off in a car.
Do you have any idea where they went?
No, not a clue.
Welcome back to our humble San Diego podcast. We're your hosts, Wesley Swanson and Chris Pawlak, and this is Drop the Mic, episode 342, Mistrust Under the Mistletoe, where we will be breaking down director Stanley Kubrick's final film, Eyes Wide Shut. But before we go back to the year 1999, let's kick it off with some of our usual warm-up segments. What's up, Chris? Welcome back. How are you?
Tired and annoyed today. Has nothing to do with you or the show. So I'm going to give you a good show. But like I said off mic before we started the show, it's been kind of a long, annoying week.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been super busy with a lot of things. So I'm just annoyed that I don't have as much time as I would like to take care of some other things.
Mm-hmm.
And annoyed with some other stuff that was going on. Nothing show-related, nothing having to do with anyone that you and I know.
Again, like I always say, thank you for making time for the show. I think this is going to be a banger. It's our Christmas special. I forgot to say that.
That's right.
You know, very, very kind of obscure Christmas movie, but that's in our wheelhouse, I would like to think.
Yeah, well, all of our Christmas movies can't be Die Hard, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I was just thinking, our Christmas movie last year was a 1999 film as well.
You know, you have a point.
And now for a special news report. Brought to you by Drop the Mic.
Let's get into it, man. Pop culture news. Do you have anything for us?
I do, as always, a couple of death notices. I just wanted to give a shout out to Norman Lear. He passed away last week. He's 101 years old. Do you know who Norman Lear was?
I'm going to be honest and say no.
He was a writer and producer. Did so many classic shows, like in the 70s and 80s, that tended to have kind of a like social slant to them.
Mm-hmm.
Dealing with some social issues, but if you were like me, growing up in the 80s, and you watched like a lot of KTLA reruns, I'll just name off a handful of his shows. He did Maude and Sanford and Son and All in the Family and One Day at a Time, Jeffersons, The Good Times. So you know a lot of those shows,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of those shows were spin-offs of other shows. Like, if I'm not mistaken, The Jeffersons was a spinoff of All in the Family, and I think Good Times was a spinoff of The Jeffersons. But super producer, really progressive dude, and still looked and sounded amazing at 100 years old, was still working. and showed no signs of really slowing down. But everyone's got an expiration date, and unfortunately he hit his. But 101 is a good life, and just the legacy of television that he leaves behind. Pretty impressive. So anyone who's not familiar with his work, check it out. I'm hoping that at least some of these shows are streaming somewhere.
101, R.I.P.
Yeah, 101. And then this one really hurts because I was a huge fan, but Andre Braugher died. I believe it was lung cancer. I believe I read that. Like, he was a smoker for many years and was trying to quit and passed away from lung cancer, but he wasn't that old, unfortunately. Yeah, he was only 61. That's not old at all, man. I mean, shit, I'm 44. Yeah, died from lung cancer. So, I mean, he was only 15 years older than me, which is crazy because I grew up watching him on TV. And one of my all-time favorite shows, Homicide: Life on the Streets.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking amazing show, phenomenal show with a stacked cast. And some of those changed throughout the years. Brower was there from the get-go, but Melissa Leo was on that show. The great Yaphet Kotto, which I believe I shouted out Homicide when he passed away.
You did, yeah.
One of my all-time favorite shows that NBC just completely mistreated all the time. I'm surprised that it got as many seasons as it did because it was always low rated. But they always shuffled it around. They never really gave a shit about it. I think they dumped it on Friday nights eventually. Granted, this was, probably a time when Friday nights were a bit bigger for television. Unfortunately, that's a show that's not streaming, and the reason for that is they have a lot of music clearance rights that need to be taken care of, and they use so much music in that show that securing the rights for it is very hard. Something like the Wonder Years or Moonlighting, which just finally came to streaming. Was both of them were shows that used a ton of music in them, and getting the rights. Freaks and Geeks was another one that for years took a long time to come to streaming because they couldn't secure the music rights. If it ever comes to streaming, I heard that it may be coming soon because they're trying to work some stuff out like they did with Moonlighting. If it ever comes to streaming, I highly recommend checking out Homicide: Life on the Streets. Brower is phenomenal in that show. If not, hey, know someone who has the DVDs and you can borrow them. I have the first few seasons on DVD. It's an amazing show. Check it out. But also, he was on Brooklyn Nine-Nine the entire run. Mm-hmm. And then let me give you a shout out for some of the movies that he's in, because he was in a lot of movies. Glory, I think, is his first film. He's in that. Watch Glory. That's a fantastic film that doesn't get enough love. Primal Fear, very good movie. Richard Gere, Edward Norton. Get on the Bus, Spike Lee's movie. City of Angels, not a great movie, but he's in it. Very good. And he was just in She Said last year about the Weinstein scandal and the two women that broke that story. So definitely check out his work. Again, I can't recommend Homicide: Life on the Streets enough whenever someone gets a chance to watch it. But RIP to Andre Braugher, way too young to pass. He will be missed. That one hurt a lot because I was such a huge fan of that show.
R.I.P.
Yes. That's all the news that's fit to print for me. So I will turn it over to you.
All right. I have a few small pieces. Let's start off with, I guess this is kind of big news, but Paramount Global and Warner Brothers Discovery met earlier this week to discuss a possible merger.
No, don't do that. Warner Brothers has done every single wrong thing since that Zaslav dude took over. Don't do that. There's going to be like 2 movie studios left in the entire world, and one of them's going to be Disney. Like, eventually everything's going to get gobbled up.
moving on to some better news. There's a couple pieces here from A24. First up, a trailer for A24's Love, Lies, and Bleeding is out and stars Kristen Stewart, Katie O'Brien, and Ed Harris. It looks to be a romantic thriller set around the world of bodybuilding. Have you seen this trailer yet?
No, but I saw this still, must have been IMDb or something, of Stewart, and I'm assuming that's Katie O'Brien that she's with, because there's two women in that still photo I saw. One of them is Kristen Stewart.
Yeah, it's got to be.
Okay. No, I haven't seen the trailer yet, but I did. Like I said, I did see that still on, I think, the IMDb front page.
It looks good.
Oh, I'll check out the trailer. Do you know when it's supposed to come out? Did they give a date?
Releases March 8th, 2024. Into Mother A24 news. A movie that I'm not sure you're down with, but The Iron Claw dropped this weekend, so make sure to go and support this biopic based on the life and times of the Von Erich family, starring Zac Efron, Jeremy Allen White, Lily James, and Holt McConley.
Fincher's dude.
Yes.
I have nothing against it. I was just, the last time you and I spoke and it came up, it was just like, yeah, it's not really a priority for me because I'm not that into wrestling.
Yes, of course.
But, yeah, I mean, I'll watch the movie for sure. Just, I don't know if I was going to, like, rush out and check it out. A friend of mine at work is, like, going with her brother to see it because they're both into wrestling.
Oh, okay.
She's like, yeah, it's my brother's birthday this weekend. We're going to go watch The Iron Claw.
Talking about consuming home media, The Creator just hit Hulu. So if you missed it in the theaters, you can now watch it at home.
Yeah, give it a watch. It's solid. It wasn't fantastic, but I liked it quite a bit more simply because it was just original sci-fi.
Uh-huh.
But I mean, it's got some flaws to it, but again, it was an original big budget sci-fi movie, and I watched it and enjoyed it.
Can't fault you there. Check it out. I have yet to see this, so I'm pretty stoked. I hope that it's good.
Yeah.
John David Washington.
Yeah, he's good, and Ken Watanabe's really good in it too.
Oh yeah, I can't wait. And that'll wrap up our news and move us into weekly recommendations.
And now it's time for the weekly recommendations.
Recommendations, I'm going to shout out two movies that you and I have done before on this podcast. So check those episodes out. One is, it's Christmas time, so watch Die Hard, because that's a rad movie, and I actually had a chance to go watch it last week with Joel. We went out and watched it because I guess they had like a re-release of it for the holidays.
They did.
So went out and watched it. Unfortunately, there weren't a lot of people in the theater. I mean, I like that because I don't like being in a crowd. But at the same time, I was kind of bummed. I was like, whoa, it's like, this is Die Hard. This movie rules, and there's like 3 other people in this theater. Go watch Die Hard. That was our first Christmas episode that we did like 6 years ago. 5 years ago? When was that?
A long time ago.
A while ago. It was the very first Christmas episode that you and I did together. Again, it's Christmas time. The other one I want to recommend is A Long Kiss Goodnight. Another one of our very, very fun episodes that we've done. Speaking of Shane Black, since I know you guys did a Shane Black movie last week, again, probably my favorite Shane Black script. I think it's the best thing he wrote that he didn't direct, and so much fucking fun. Gina Davis is so great in that movie, and her and Samuel L. Jackson have such great chemistry and play off of each other so well that it's a shame that movie isn't as big as it should have been, but since it has this cult following, which is great. It's one of the perennial movies I try to catch at Christmas time, much like Die Hard is.
That's another movie that we covered.
That's right. Very fun episode. Why I wasn't thinking and saved that for a Christmas episode, I don't know. We talked about it in the what was that, late summer, early fall? Because we were talking Shane Black. And then later on I was like, shit, I should have saved that for a Christmas movie. It's a perfect Christmas movie.
I find that very weird that we didn't think to do that.
It was before we had done a Christmas episode.
Yeah.
And we were talking Shane Black because The Predator was coming out.
Uh-huh.
So I said, oh, we should do a Shane Black movie. And I think that's why we did that. And then later on, when we sat down and decided, oh yeah, let's do a Christmas movie, and then started that tradition. We had already blown up one of the best movies that we could have done for a Christmas episode. But that's okay, because that's still one of my favorite episodes that we've done, and I highly recommend that movie because I've always been such a huge fan of it. But those are the two I have for you. Some good Christmas picks. And was awesome. I just want to say again, was fucking awesome seeing Die Hard on the big screen. I've only seen it once before in a theater, and was a very fun experience, especially because it was shot on film, and you could tell that it was shot on film. And a lot of that movie, everything in that movie still holds up, effects wise, action wise. It's kind of an unprecedented action hit. And the squib work, holy shit, the squib work. I know that I'm pretty sure we talked about it on the when we did the Christmas show on it, but again, when Joel and I were watching, we're like, holy shit, that squib work is top notch. Especially when that dude gets his kneecaps blown the fuck out in the computer room. It's brutal.
I'm gonna watch it again for Christmas, before Christmas.
Definitely watch it. You have to honor it. And I'm surprised it's not streaming on HBO or something right now.
I haven't watched much new stuff lately, but I have been rewatching Mindhunter.
Good show.
Which is a pretty rad show. It's been pretty awesome going back through. I didn't really remember season 2 all that much, so it's been really cool going back through, in chronological order, I guess, and revisiting that show, and just remembering how amazing it is, and how I'm so mad that it didn't get a chance to kind of continue.
Yeah, apparently, they had a contract, and they were possibly going to do a third season, and something either Netflix didn't go for it, or something couldn't get worked out, and they just kind of quietly let all the actors go from their contracts, and then that was it. And it's such a bummer because they were really picking up steam at the end of that second season. Mm-hmm. Yes, very good show. That was a show that I had always heard about but never had watched until I think during the COVID lockdown. I finally got around to watching it and really enjoyed it.
Have you read any of those books?
No, I have not.
I think there's three books in that series.
I'll definitely look them up.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And now for the movie focus of the week. This
week, it's our Christmas special. We're talking about a little film called Eyes Wide Shut. It's rated R. It's from 1999. It's an erotic thriller that runs at 2 hours and 45 minutes, and it's got a 76 currently on Rotten. Written by Frederick Raphael and Stanley Kubrick, directed by, of course, Stanley Kubrick, starring Tom Cruise, Nicole Kidman, Sidney Pollack, Todd Field, Vanessa Shaw, Madison Edgerton, and Lily Sobieski. The film follows a wealthy couple who begin to question their marriage after thoughts of a potential affair arise. Director Stanley Kubrick was struck with the itch to adapt the concept after reading the novella Dream Story by Arthur Schnitzler in the late 60s. Although the film follows the source material rather closely, Kubrick did opt to modernize the film's setting, bringing it to the 90s and setting it in New York, despite his fear of flying. Kubrick would secure the rights to the film shortly after reading it. However, the road to getting it made proved to be rather long, taking over 30 years to get it off the ground. When it came to early casting stages, several stars were once lined up for the lead role of Dr. William Hartford. This included Woody Allen and Steve Martin. Flashing forward several years and a handful of Kubrick films later, we arrived to 1996, where Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman were approached to star in the film. After the two agree, Warner Brothers gave the go-ahead to start production in the UK. In true Kubrick fashion, the production would be plagued with controversies and last nearly 3 years due to Stanley's perfectionist nature. On March 7th, 1999, Stanley Kubrick passed away due to a sudden heart attack. Having just finished his cut of the film and screening it for both Warner Brothers, Tom Cruise, and Nicole Kidman, just days before his death. Unfortunately, Eyes Wide Shut still was technically unfinished, with ADR work and music still up in the air for the project, with both the cast and crew stepping in to help finish up the film. Released in the US on July 16th, 1999, and then in the UK on September 10th, 1999, the film pulled in an overall gross of $162.1 million against its $65 million budget. The amount of interest stunned Warner Brothers and outshined their predictions despite Kubrick's usual production secrecy. The feedback on the film was very divisive upon its release. However, over the years, it has been recognized as one of the stronger films to come out of the 90s, and personally, I feel that it is among the best in Kubrick's already robust filmography. A haunting, simplistic score with beautiful performances all around make for an insanely unique and intimate experience that completely transcends time. 4 masquerade masks out of 5. Thank you.
I always like wondering what your rating system is going to be for each film. I think at one point in time, the poster was just the masquerade, or just the masquerade mask.
Yeah.
It was just like that on like the purple background, if I'm not mistaken. I think the main poster is Kidman and Cruise's face.
Yeah, what I had heard, or at least doing the research and whatnot, is that the mirror with the one that we see everywhere, where it's like the Kidman and Cruise in the mirror, like with the border, is like studio meddling, and that it was Kubrick's daughter that had done the original prints that were supposed to be the cover, and I guess they didn't like them at all and said no. And I think that might be one of them is with the mask. Yeah,
I could have sworn that there was one that was just strictly had the mask on it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you think that studio meddling, I'm not surprised, because in classic Kubrick fashion, there was so much secrecy around this, and there's like no plot details really that are given. The only trailer for it was that teaser trailer, which gives nothing away.
Mm-hmm.
And it tells you who's in the movie and who directed it, and that's it. So I'm not surprised that Warner Brothers was like, we need to sell this movie, so we need to put the movie stars' faces in it. But I kind of like the simplicity of just a mask.
Yeah, especially like in what it means to the story. It makes sense.
So right away, I want to just point out we are bookending our 2023 with Nicole Kidman movies, because we started out with To Die For, and now we're doing Eyes Wide Shut.
That's awesome. I didn't even realize that we had, that you had set it up that way.
Well, that wasn't necessarily the plan, but I mean.
Oh, okay, so it's a happy accident.
it was a happy accident. I will happily take credit for at least part of it, because Eyes Wide Shut was something that you and I both agreed on. Because we had talked about it a few times before for a Christmas episode. But yes, two Nicole Kidman movies. I think two of her strongest performances, even though she's not in this one nearly as much, obviously, because she's the star of To Die For, and in this, she's second billed, but it's really Cruise's movie for the most part, because Kidman's largely absent from a big chunk of the film.
She is. But I think when she is on screen, she has a very demanding presence, right?
Yeah. She's very good in the handful of scenes. There's like the big party scene in the beginning. There's obviously the end in the toy store, and then there's the scene of them both in the bedroom when they have their argument. But yeah, very, very good performance from the Kidman in this.
But Eyes Wide Shut, man. Obviously, we've said this before on the show numerous times, but you're a little bit older than me. Did you get to see this in the theater?
Oh, absolutely.
And
absolutely. I was really looking forward to it. I mean, being a huge Stanley Kubrick fan.
Okay.
And I mean, let me just say this, especially like rewatching this movie the other night in preparation for the show, because I haven't seen this movie in some time. It's wild that this movie came out in the middle of summer. This is not a summer movie by any stretch. And it's crazy that it came out in the middle of summer.
Yeah, it feels very fall, at least, right?
Yeah.
Fall, winter, something.
Yeah, I mean, a different time. Like I said, I've said plenty of times before, like, the release model for films used to be a lot different. You would have bigger movies, R-rated movies coming out in the summer and doing huge business. And now it seems like the studios save all that stuff for end of the year. You know, making the Academy Awards play. But at the same time, you know, you don't see heavier movies in certain times of the year. So having this movie come out in summertime, a pretty busy summer actually, is pretty crazy. But yes, I saw it in the theater, was stoked on it when I was able to watch it in the theater. Love seeing it on film, and can remember like how divisive it was. And like you said, it kind of has gained some, not necessarily popularity, but has kind of risen in stature over the years. Because I remember a lot of people just being like, I can't believe this is the last movie that this guy made. It's not that great. But it's especially, you know, being the first Kubrick movie in 12 years, 13 years. Because he was starting to get where he was only making a movie, you know, every so often. And I mean, shit, when his last movie came out was Full Metal Jacket, like I wasn't even old enough to watch that in the theaters. I didn't see that until much later. But that movie came out when I was still a kid. And, you know, Eyes Wide Shut came out when I was able to see it actually in the theater. He does The Shining in 1980, and then it's a full 7 years before Full Metal Jacket comes out. And then it's like 12 years before Eyes Wide Shut comes out.
Because I think he had been wanting to do something like Eyes Wide Shut while he was making Dr. Strangelove, I believe. And then he found that book and was like, okay, this is like the concept that I've been looking for or whatever. So this had been going on for some time, like him trying to do something with this book, you know? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he had it for 20 years, 25 years. That he had been thinking about doing something with it. I think at one point, I think it was almost going to be a follow-up to either 2001 or A Clockwork Orange. and then something didn't work out, and it just got set to the side.
Yeah.
But let me say this, which I should have said at the beginning of the show. This was not the first Kubrick movie I thought you and I would ever do. And it's probably not even the third or fourth Kubrick movie I thought you or I would ever do. So it's like, I mean, I'm not being down on it in any way, shape, or form. Like, I'm not saying that, like, this wasn't a movie that we should have covered. I was just, when you proposed this to me last year when we were putting together our list for, like, the 2024 movies, I was like, okay. I thought we would get to a few other Kubrick movies, or a few other Kubrick movies would have been the obvious choices that you or I would have picked at one point. And then when you said Eyes Wide Shut, I was like, okay, I guess we'll do Eyes Wide Shut first.
Honestly, because it's the year it was released, and it's so unconventional in in a lot of ways, and it's like Kubrick's Basic Instinct.
Oh, we know it's trashy.
Yeah.
Well, one of the big complaints about this movie when it came out was that it's not an erotic thriller, and it's kind of not. Like, it's got some of that stuff in it, at least as far as like the orgy scene goes.
That's really it, huh? That's like,
yeah, like, it's not really a thriller. It's more of a weird drama, or I don't even want to say like a psychological drama. It's just kind of Cruise's descent, basically, into this weird world after Kidman's confession kind of sends him spiraling.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But I mean, I guess I would classify it as a drama, but not even really an erotic drama, because there isn't a whole lot of that stuff in it.
But you know what it is I guess, like, the intro to the film is very heavy on Nicole Kidman's body, and I think that was part of like the press around when the movie was coming out, like, oh, yes. This is, so that's why I think it got kind of slapped with that. But when you really watch the film, all of that is very quick.
Yeah. Well, again, this movie was super secret.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And, everyone had kind of formed their own opinion about the movie, or about, everyone was forming this narrative about what this movie was going to be, without actually seeing anything, without hearing anything about what the actual plot of the film was. So it was like, oh, it's going to be like some full-on like sex movie with, Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise, and it's really not. I mean, even like their one scene at the beginning is her naked in the mirror with him coming up and, starting to make out with her.
And they zoom in, so it ends up being like a above the waist, thing or whatever. It doesn't get overly raunchy the way that I feel like a lot of people believed it was going to be. Yeah.
And I think, that's where a lot of the negative reactions to it came from, is because everyone already had their perception of what this movie was going to be. And when it wasn't that, then everyone was like, oh, well, it's a big letdown, because they all thought it was going to be one thing, and then it turned out that it wasn't.
My hot take is that this movie rules, and it's fucking good if you have the patience for this type of film, And I guess
True.
you can say that for any Kubrick film, I suppose, but if you're able to invest your time into this, what is it? Was 2 hours,
like
and
240?
Yeah, 238.
Yeah.
Like that. If you're able to take that ride and really invest, it definitely it's well worth it.
Oh yeah, it's very compelling, because like things just kind of get weird, But yeah, I totally think it's worth it. I mean, shit, The Shining is almost 2.5 hours. And that movie, too, kind of takes its time. But at no point am I thinking that this film is dragging. But I mean, that's us. I don't know. Maybe other people are just like, oh yeah, this movie's just dragging on and on and on. But I'm still very fascinated by it, very invested in what's happening.
It's kind of it's very bizarre how Cruise's character is sent spiraling, but over a dream, right? Essentially,
not really a dream, just kind of a. I saw this guy and I was intrigued by him, and I thought maybe there would be something happening, but like nothing happened. But it's kind of the way that she lays out all the details to him that really affects him. You know, because they're there and they're having this argument this argument starts, and she's talking about, you know, have you ever been tempted? And he's like, no, you know, you're my wife and I love you, and you know, you're the mother of my child, and no, I've never thought that. But then she says that she had this thought about this random guy that she saw when they were on vacation, and thought about all this. And, you know, yeah, and, you know, she describes, you know, what her thing is and the dream and all that. And yeah, he's just completely thrown. But again, nothing actually happened. But it's just the thought that she was entertaining these thoughts that does not sit well with him.
where it's almost like he's like, well, okay, well then fuck it, like might as well go out and like do some shit for real.
Yeah, it's what sends him down that rabbit hole, and then it's, you know, he has the encounter with Domino the prostitute, and then he's at the orgy, and then when he goes back, and then the Kidman has the dream about, you know, she's in this place, and you know, she's having sex with all these people, and people are watching. She's basically describing the orgy without actually having been to the orgy. You know, but then he's like, he's really into the idea of going back to the prostitute and consummating that relationship, and then that gets stopped on the tracks by her friend talking to him. But you know, he's like, I'm gonna go and do my own thing.
And he hits on her Domino's friend, right?
Oh my god! It's immediate. Like, Domino's not there, so he just comes in, and then he's immediately like going in, trying to put the moves on her. I don't even think it was Domino that he really wanted. He just wanted to fuck someone else.
And then he gets that insane and very scary news.
You know, Domino is HIV positive. But, I mean, the roommate, what's her name, Sally? Tells this story to him, and Sally assumes that they were together the night before when they weren't. You know, because he had to leave. She tells him this news about Domino, and he sits there and acts like, oh, this is something serious, but he never did anything with her, so he's got nothing to be worried about.
I think it was, well, for me, the way that I interpret the scene is that he is, as a doctor especially, coming, like dodging a bullet, because he would have done it had his wife not called him and he had left at that moment. He would have had the contact, you know, and then he would be having a very different conversation at that moment. So it was almost like that realization of like, holy shit, what did I...
Close call.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you're right. It's... I was this close to, you know, possibly being into some trouble here.
Would it, like, as a doctor, would would it be safe to assume that he would? I hope he would use some kind of protection, right? And not.
Well, I mean, I don't speak for all sex workers, obviously, but that's kind of the thing. If you're going to do that, with a prostitute, like, you need to be strapped up.
Yep.
I don't know how everyone plays it, but yeah. Even so, there's always still, a possibility.
Yep.
But yeah, he takes that news and then he's kind of shook by that, but he's already like deep into this world. He's being followed. He's being kind of intimidated. The whole thing that sparks their arguments is that party the night before where, she's dancing with the older guy who's really putting the moves on her. Cruz is getting flirted with by the two models. And then there's this mutual jealousy between them of, she's saying, hey, did you fuck those two girls? And he's asking about the older guy who definitely wanted to have sex with her.
He's all, come upstairs and I'll show you some paintings.
It's not even his house. It's just kind of weird. It's Sidney Pollack's house. And then there's like there's that whole weird thing where he gets called away. From when he's talking to the two models, he gets called away and he goes upstairs and there's Sidney Pollack like putting his clothes back on and the woman's completely passed out.
Mm-hmm.
So then it's what was going on here? Like, was he date raping her? Were they like in the middle of something and she passed out? It's like really weird. I don't, she took this and, she's been like this for like 5 minutes. It's really weird. And, Cruz comes in and, administers some treatment to her. And, Sidney Pollack is a married guy. It's already weird. Victor Ziegler, I should say. I keep referring to everyone by the actor's name, and I should refer to them by the character's name since we're talking about the film.
True.
Oh, by the way, Sidney Pollack fucking rules in this movie. He's really good.
Yeah, he does, especially when he comes back around towards the end.
At the climax of the film. Want to shout him out. I mean, he's unfortunately deceased now, but great director. But I liked him even better, like when he was the character actor, when he was in front of the camera. Directed some pretty great flicks. 3 Days of the Condor, which is one I highly recommend. Very good movie. Tootsie, huge movie. The Firm, which he does with Tom Cruise.
Okay.
And then as an actor, he was in The Player. He's in Death Becomes Her. He's in Michael Clayton, which he's so fucking good in Michael Clayton. That might be the best movie that he made as an actor. That I think is probably above his role here.
Is that the George Clooney one?
Yeah,
yes.
Great flick. Got a fucking fantastic supporting turn from Tilda Swinton, too. So if anyone has not seen Michael Clayton, watch it. It's so fucking good. So, Sidney Pollack, as an actor, is great in this movie. And replacement for Harvey Keitel.
Insane, this story.
Because Harvey Keitel was cast in this role and had shot scenes and had a commitment to another movie. And because Kubrick had a very long shoot, Keitel needed to leave, but there was also rumors that the two of them weren't getting along. Keitel wasn't getting along with Kubrick, and he didn't like the fact that, Kubrick was doing so many takes of certain scenes. So that was the rumor that he left because of that. Not strictly the commitment to another film. But watching this movie, Sidney Pollack works better.
Yeah, I kind of like that they ended up going with him instead.
Keitel always seems to have a bit of a harder edge to him.
Yeah.
and I don't think it would have worked for this character.
I could see maybe Albert Brooks was.
I mean, we're referring to as his Turn and Drive, which he's really fucking good in.
Yes.
Yeah. This I could see Albert Brooks in this, not for the Tom Cruise role like originally was thought of.
Yeah, fucking wild. Like what?
Yeah, because originally he thought this movie was going to be like kind of a sex comedy when he was thinking about it, like in the late 60s and 70s.
Which is Woody Allen makes sense or whatever. For that,
I mean,
yeah, for that
as this movie plays out now, I cannot imagine.
Imagine like even Steve Martin would be so weird.
Some of the other names: Tom Hanks, Bill Murray, Warren Beatty, Alan Alda, Sam Shepard.
None of those guys. None of them.
For what it is now, no, absolutely not. Maybe Warren Beatty, but Warren Beatty at that point was not appearing in a lot of stuff. You know, even then, I think his directing career was like few and far between. So I can't imagine any of those guys in this role. I mean, to be honest, I really can't see Cruise in this role, but that's coming from a place where, like, you know, I think of like the baggage that Cruise brings with him, especially now.
So what were your? I'm curious, like, or I mean, if you can remember, were you against him being the lead before you saw the movie, or were you like hesitant?
No, not really, because for anyone listening that only knows Cruise as like the action guy now, like, he could be a very good actor, and he was at that point in his career where he was working with a lot of big name directors and being more of an actor. And we've had this discussion with CJ before, where it was, you know, he used to be really putting his effort into like being an actor. I mean, the same year, a few months after this movie is out, he's in Magnolia. He's fucking phenomenal in Magnolia. And then kind of after that whole like War of the Worlds press tour thing, where he's jumping up on the couch and being all weird and crazy, then he just kind of steps away from doing some capital A acting and just kind of becomes like the action guy, which is unfortunate. I mean, I love Mission Impossible. We're going to talk about Mission Impossible next week, but I wish that he would go back to trying to do some more, to try to stretch his craft a bit more like he used to. And no, I'm not opposed to him being in this movie at all. I'm kind of wondering, like, who else, like, they thought of would have played that role of Bill Harford. And at the point when the movie was actually getting made, not like in the 60s and 70s when he was trying to make it a comedy. And I know that you said Alec Baldwin, Kim Basinger. I'd heard Bruce Willis and Demi Moore. I don't know why exactly he wanted a married couple, because a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times married couples don't have as much chemistry on screen as they would with, you know, if they were like two random actors.
Yeah.
And even saying that now, like, I don't think that Cruise and Kidman had ever had great chemistry on screen in the 3 movies that they made together.
Can I ask you a real quick question?
No, you can't, dude. We're doing this. No, you can't. Of course you can. Of course.
I've always thought that Tom Cruise was a great deal shorter than Kidman, but then
he is. He is. She's at least 5 inches taller than he is.
Okay. Because if you watch, maybe you know the behind the scenes on this, and you can answer this for me. But if you watch the when they're in when they go to Sidney Pollack's house, or his character's house, in the beginning, and they're dancing together, they're almost evenly matched in height. So they did something when shooting that. Did you notice that?
Yeah, that's camera trickery.
Okay.
Let me look her up. Kidman is just under 6 feet tall.
Okay.
And Cruise is kind of a notoriously shorter guy that either is standing on an apple box or having a co-star who's shorter than he is. Let me see. I'm trying to look up his actual height. He might be like 5'8", maybe 5'6". Although sometimes Susie was like, "I'm 5'6". I'm like, I don't think so.
What? She thinks she's 5'6"?
I'm pretty sure that's what she always tells me. I'm still looking it up. Hang on. 5'7".
Okay, he's 5'7".
So yeah, Kidman's like a full 4 to 5 inches taller than he is.
Okay. I was watching that and I was like, there's no fucking way. Like, I know I'm not crazy. But when they're dancing, they look like the same height.
Yeah. That's probably some trickery there. You can kind of tell as they go to like walk out of the apartment, like their apartment.
Yeah, right before that.
Yeah. Yeah, she is taller than he is. We talked about the scene where they kind of have their confessions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But there's something, it's like that scene is kind of off for me. Not necessarily in a bad way, it's just like some of their line readings are a little weird. And Cruise almost has this thing where he's like trying to act natural and he can't. Does that make sense? Did you get that read off of it?
I think so, yeah.
Like it's not bad. It's just some of the line readings are a little bit weird. Maybe it's that thing where, someone is obviously not stoned, but they're trying to play stoned.
Yeah.
And like they kind of don't know how to play it.
Where they're acting like drunk or something, like a different physical aesthetic than they should be doing.
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just rewatching that scene, I was like, oh, like something's a little off here. Or they're trying to act a certain way, or trying to act natural, and it's not really working. But they're both good in the scene. It's just, sometimes it almost seems like that was a rehearsal that Kubrick just filmed. But knowing that it's Kubrick, it's like, no, this scene was probably shot 500 times.
And he was like, this one.
He's like, fuck it, yeah, this one, let's go.
I do really
that's just my read off of it.
I like when Cruise, towards the end of the scene where just, Kidman's like laying into him and his reaction to that. And he looks like he's like trying not to cry.
Mm-hmm.
That's that is where he becomes strong.
Mm-hmm.
But some of their deliveries back and forth there is kind of a little bit wonky.
Again, not in a bad way. I don't think it detracts from the film at all. It's just rewatching it, I was like, oh yeah, something's a little off here.
Knowing Kubrick, that's probably like some hidden message about something else that we have no idea about.
He's like, see, like, I shot the moon landing and this is my confession. The way that these two people are talking to one another.
Oh, man.
So there's like this whole weird thing with Sidney Pawlak at the party. He also at the party meets his old friend, like Nick Nightingale, who's the piano player, played by Todd Field, actor-director Todd Field, who I don't know if he had directed the film at that point in time. He's about to break big with In the Bedroom, was like one of his directorial movies where it blew up pretty big and got a lot of Oscar nominations. I'm going to look it up right now and see if that was his first actual film that he directed. Yeah, his first film is In the Bedroom, which comes out 2 years after Eyes Wide Shut.
You know, I remember when this came out and we went to Hollywood Video. I'm not... Keep in mind where you are, because I just want to tell this story. It's really quick.
Of course.
But my grandfather... So we go to Hollywood Video, and we were looking at the new releases, and I remember In the Bedroom, right? That's what it's called?
Yes.
Comes out, and he's not sure if he should rent it or not, because of the title, of course. So he asked somebody, a worker walks by, a girl, and he's like, hey, like, do you know anything about this In the Bedroom? Is it any good? What is it about? And she's all, I don't know, things that happen in the bedroom? This most smart-ass response. And I still remember that, so I just thought it was worth noting.
Have you ever watched that movie, though?
No, I don't remember it.
You should watch it.
It's good?
It's good, but it's kind of heavy.
Mm-hmm.
But Sissy Spacek, Marissa Tomei, Tom Wilkinson, they're all very fucking good in it. And Tom Cruise's cousin, William Mapother, plays one of the guys in it. And Nick Stahl.
Oh, Nick Stahl?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Check it out. But it got like a handful of Oscar nominations. I think Best Picture, Actor, Actress. I think even Supporting Actress for Marissa Tomei. But yeah, that's Todd Field. He just directed Tar last year.
Oh yes. The keyboardist. Right?
No, with Cate Blanchett, where she's the...
No, but I'm saying in the movie it's his buddy, right?
Yeah, Nick Knight, the piano player. Mm-hmm. Yes. Sorry, I was confused there.
Sorry.
So that's his friend from medical school, but he's not a doctor anymore. He's just, a piano player. And he just kind of does like for hire work. And he has a for hire job at this orgy that he says, I don't know where it is. They won't tell me until this time. But he gets like the secret password, and then all of a sudden Cruz is like way into, hey, give me the password. Like, I just want to go and see what's going on.
What's the password?
Fidelio,
yeah. He's all, there's no way in hell you're walking out of here without taking me with you.
He wants to go see what's doing.
In that situation, what are you doing, Chris?
Not going to a fucking orgy.
But he didn't know. Well, I mean, I guess he could have tipped him off after where, whatever he says to him off screen. He obviously gives him the address. But did he know? Did he know it was like a full-on orgy the way it was, or just that it was like some crazy shit? Because his friend supposedly didn't know too much. He was blindfolded, right? I know he does say that it was tied a little loose once, right? And he saw women and whatnot, and there's definitely some alluding to some kind of raunchy stuff going on, but I don't think that Cruise's character, Harford, really knew, like, to the extent, obviously, of what it was going to be like, some Illuminati type shit.
Yeah, probably. I mean, he didn't know, and he's in that mind space where he's just like, I want to go out and have some fun, and it's after, he has the encounter with Domino, who he runs into on the street. We didn't talk about this, but during their fight, he gets saved by the phone call from the woman whose father has passed away, one of his patients.
Uh-huh.
So he goes there to see her, And basically, when he gets in there, she's throwing herself completely at him, saying, "Oh, I'm in love with you. I want to run away with you. I'm not in love with my fiance." And it's weird because it's, you know, they barely know each other. And he even says that, like, you know, we've spoken, like, you know, just a handful of times, and it's been about your father each time. But, you know, she wants to run away with him. And then luckily, the thing that saves him is the fiance coming home.
And he walks in all awkward.
Yeah. And then that's what leads him out onto the street, and that's where he meets Domino. So yeah, he ends up at this fucking orgy, and there's the weird, like, the chanting and everything. You know, he has to go. Well, he goes and he has to rent a costume because he needs, like, a cloak and a mask. So he goes to this costume shop.
Which I would have just stopped there with that interaction. I would have been like, you know what? Never mind, bro. Like, I'm good. I'm obviously not supposed to be doing what it is I'm trying to do today.
Because the whole encounter at the costume shop is super creepy too.
Yeah, it gets very intense, like, for no reason.
I mean, first of all, it's kind of a serious movie. And even though he kind of plays a scumbag, Rade Srbedizia, he's like Croatian or something, so I'm probably butchering the name. But he's been in a bunch of other flicks. I mean, he's Boris the Blade in Snatch.
Uh-huh.
But his scene kind of brings a little bit of levity. Like, just the interaction with him and Cruz and the beginning, like when he lets him into the shop.
Yeah, finally.
Yeah, and he's talking about, you know, oh, I can't let you in, like, it's late, we're closed. But then Harford offers him, you know, more money than what the costume's worth. He's like, okay, you know, he brings him in, and he's, oh, hey, are you a doctor? Yeah, because, you know, I'm losing my hair. It's like all falling out, see? And he's just like being like really weird and bringing a bit of levity to the film. And then there's that whole creepy thing where he finds like his daughter with these two other guys in the room, like they're up to no good.
Hiding.
So, you know, he yells at his daughter, you know, drags her out. She goes and runs behind Harper, like, for protection. And then he traps the two guys in the room and says he's going to call the cops. And then immediately just goes back to, like, the interaction with the costume. Instead of saying, I have bigger things to worry about. Why don't you go home and come back another time?
He's like, he immediately, because he's kind of ticked off at Hoffer's character. And when the daughter thing happens and he locks the guys inside, he immediately turns friendly to Cruz's character.
Yeah.
Where he's like, oh, I am so sorry, my friend. Like, let's get you your cloak, your black cloak, and a mask. And then the daughter's just kind of like hugging onto Cruz, like all weird.
It's a very, like, again, like nothing is going not necessarily right, but everything has this air of like sinister. There's like a sinister air to everything that's happening around him. And he's still just very deep into, I want to go and do this thing, even though I probably shouldn't. But he's spiraling. That whole argument just sends him spiraling. That whole confession that she has about the naval officer, which obviously keeps bothering him because it keeps flashing. He keeps having these thoughts about what what their encounter might have been. And he's really, obviously, shook by that. The thought of his wife with another man in the sexual encounter.
And they show her with a sailor, right?
Yep, he's like a naval officer, I think. When she tells the story to him, and it keeps flashing back, and it's like every time he thinks back on it, like it's getting worse and worse. Like it's some kissing, some foreplay, and then all of a sudden it's like full on sex. And every time he keeps thinking back to it, it's just getting worse and worse.
Guys, jealous. Peanut butter and jealous.
I mean, shit, I haven't even really touched my notes yet. You would just keep talking about this, which is probably a good thing. I have lots of notes, as I tend to. But there's the orgy scene, which starts out very fucking weird, with all the chanting and the incense and everything. Everyone's in the mask. Everyone's in the cloak. It's all, like you said, it's all secret society stuff.
Like, how did Harford know what style mask was going to be okay and not think that they were going to be like, who the fuck are you right away? And the fact that he's a dummy, and he's all, hey, like, tells the taxi, hey, like, wait out here for me. I might be 15 minutes, I might be like 2 hours, but I'll give you this 100 on top of the fare, leave the meter running, it'll be all good. But he doesn't tell him, like, go park down the block, don't let nobody see you. He doesn't tell him anything. He just lets him stay, like, right outside the gate.
Well, everyone that, like, showed up at that orgy, like, came in a limo or something.
Yeah. So it's like,
and all of a sudden, he's just like some rando that shows up in a taxi, and the taxi's like parked out on the corner where those two bodyguards are standing.
And they noticed because the butler comes up to him, remember, and that's how they get him to come down for the confrontation.
Yeah.
He's like,
oh yeah, are you the guy with the cab waiting? Yeah, like immediately they know, like, you're someone who shouldn't be here.
Should have listened to that chick.
Even like, what's that?
He should have listened to that chick, man.
I know.
She was
trying to warn him.
Told him, like, what, 2 or 3 times, like, yo, bounce right now. They don't know yet, but they gonna find out.
Even like when he comes up in the cab, doesn't the cab like drive by and then like stop and then like back up?
Yeah, all stupid. Yeah. And then you just see the guards. The guards are like, who the fuck are these? Like, what the fuck is going on? He's all, I'm assuming you want the password now, and he's all, if you wish, sir.
I mean, I don't have to give you the password, I guess. You can just let me in.
Oh, man, and that confrontation when they're like, all right, well, give us the house password then. And he's like, I'm sorry, I seem to have forgotten it. And everyone's like, oh my God.
Some of those masks are wild, too.
Yeah.
Some of those masks are very creepy. They're very Twilight Zone-y.
Yeah, and there's a lot of them, too.
There's the full-on plague doctor mask with the super long nose.
I liked God, what's Pawlak's name in the film?
Ziegler?
Yeah, Ziegler. He has that weird big ass mask. It just has like kind of like a prominent nose thing.
Yeah.
Right? That's him. That's supposed to be him, right?
You don't know, but he does give him the nod.
So
that's kind of up in the air as to whether or not it is him.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say I think that it's him.
I think that's kind of like the popular theory, is that it is him.
Because his eyes is like, whoa, like, I know you. Why are you here? Type of thing,
He nods at them, and then Cruz nods back. He's like, hey, enjoy the show? Yeah. I guess you want the password, right? Like nothing screams like this guy's like really out of place. So, I have this on Blu-ray. How do you have it?
This one is also digital.
Okay. So, you know that when this movie came out, there was like digital people inserted into that, or do you see to kind of block like the more sexually explicit stuff that's happening?
I do know that, yes.
My Blu-ray does not have that. Apparently, that was the cut that was that was sent to the MPAA to get an R rating, because that was a stipulation in the contract, was you can do this movie, but you need to have the R rating. It can't be NC-17. So during the orgy scene, when there's some more sexually explicit stuff happening, the theatrical cut in 1999 had digital bodies, standing around watching that are like blocking the goings on.
And your Blu-ray doesn't have that?
They do not.
Okay.
No, I don't know if the Blu-ray is unrated or if everyone was like, oh yeah, this is stupid. We're adults. We can handle things, so we'll take out the digital people. I was just wondering, so do you have the digital people in there?
No, because I just,
okay.
Of course, I just rewatched it for the show, and you're able to see a great deal of nudity, so I would say no.
Okay, you would probably know.
Yeah,
they were, if I remember correctly, they were like naked women that were like standing in front of the more explicit stuff that was going on. But I just remember seeing that in 1999, and it looked okay, but you could tell. But I kind of knew that. I had kind of heard that going in, was that, there's certain scenes where during the orgy that they have some CGI people standing around. So I was just curious because, that was the one thing that not the one thing, but one thing I do remember about seeing it in the theater. But now that it's on digital and streaming and home media and everything, it can be like the unrated cut. And I don't know if that's truly what this is, or if everyone just said, you know what, these were stupid. This was back in the day. We'll take them out.
By your standards today, do you think it's that bad?
No, I mean, I've seen worse in other films before. So no, I don't. I mean, I've seen other stuff on TV before, like cable TV.
Yeah.
So no, I don't think it's that bad. But also, this is an R-rated movie for adults, and one of the complaints that Ebert had was that it's stupid that this was a movie for adults, and they have to insert these people in to try to shield us from something, when it's like, are there kids watching this? Because there shouldn't be kids watching this anyways. So anyways, that was my question there. He walks through all these rooms, he sees all this stuff going on. There's the woman there that's trying to say, you don't belong, you need to get the fuck out right now because these people are dangerous. And then, like you said, that guy tricks him. Hey, your cab is waiting for you. Come with me. He's like, okay, and then, he gets busted. And then they make it seem like, they want him to strip down naked, like they're going to do something to him, harm him. And then the girl that was trying to warn him stands up and says, hey, like, I'll put myself in his place. Leave him be. I'll be the sacrifice, or, whatever. So he's allowed to leave. Someone comes and gets the woman.
They kind of tell her, like, hey, do you realize, like, the weight of what you're doing right now? There is no turning back. And she's like, yeah, I accept my fate. It's fine. Just let him go. And then, of course, Harford, being stubborn, is like, what's going on and what are you guys going to do to her? And they're like, you know, like, just get out of here, pretty much. So, like, don't worry about it.
Yeah, you can't say anything about what you saw here. So, you need to stay quiet.
Oh, yeah, or he's like, there's going to be very severe, dire consequences for you and your family.
Yeah.
If we find out that you've said anything about tonight. And of course, he's like a self-proclaimed detective all of a sudden.
Oh, do you love how he's like walking around? He's like, "Don't worry, I'm a doctor." He's flashing it like it's a badge. Oh, you're a doctor? Yeah, big fucking deal, bro. He's like, "It's okay, I'm a doctor."
Yeah, like that hostess.
Yeah.
When he's trying to find his buddy again, she's like, okay, that's
He's
cool.
looking for Nick.
Yeah. She's like, that's cool that you're a doctor, but I'm pretty sure he still wouldn't want me to give you his address. So.
Yeah. He does it again at the hotel with Alan Cumming, who's so great in that one scene.
That's right.
Which, I think that was one of his first film roles, too. Because he looks so young there.
He looks very young. Was he supposed to be like trying to hit on Harper?
I think it reads that way, yeah.
Yeah. Where he's like, oh, like, who's this? Or whatever.
Yeah.
And then he kind of turns that switch on and was like, well, now that you mention it, something did happen weird with Nick this morning. And he just tells this fucking crazy story.
He's like, oh yeah, these were big guys.
I'm talking like not the type of big that you want to like fool around with, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. No, okay. It's not. That's right, because he's in GoldenEye and he's in Romeo and Michelle's before that. That's right. But he looks so young in this movie. Maybe it's because this movie was shot like 3 years before it actually came out. Maybe that's why he looks so young. Yeah, he's great in that one scene.
And that's,
you're right. It's so funny how he's like kind of secretive, but then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, let me tell you.
Yeah. Yeah, he's like, okay, you're a doctor?
Oh, man. Yeah, I remember that band kind of being a joke, like the I'm a doctor, like flashing his doctor's ID, his New York, license, like it's a police badge.
I think that's like the, well, how would you say, like honor code or something, where you're like, look at like I'm a doctor, I have to be a good person type of deal, like stature, I guess, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm saying, like, what was running through his mind, why he thought that would be appropriate, is like, they'll take me more seriously if they see this or whatever. Like, it's his only, like, the only play that he has in his book. Because remember when he just gets totally wrecked by those jocks?
Yeah.
In the street? He's just walking down the street minding his own business, and these, like, drunk dudes, younger dudes, just totally fucking, like, body swipe him and throw him up against a car, dropping F-bombs, and they're like,
yeah.
Oh yeah, you want a piece of this, huh? You want a piece of this? What? Like, all crazy.
Yeah, they're like really aggressive. for like no reason at all.
Be like, you better calm down for Jack Reacher. Whoop that ass.
Man, that fight scene in that first Jack Reacher movie is great. When he takes on all those dudes in the street.
Yeah, dude.
They're all like acting tough and talking shit and everything. And he's like, I'm giving you the chance. Like, you walk away now. And then, they keep pushing. He's like, all right, you asked for this. And then doesn't he take out the first guy and kind of like looks around at the other ones?
Yeah.
To the point where it's like, hey, you saw what I did to this guy. Are you guys still sure that you want to do this? And because they're stupid, they think they can still take him.
Oh, man.
What I'm saying is that first Jack Reacher movie is really fucking good.
It is. It's way better than you would expect it to be.
It's a movie that I rewatch every now and then. The second one is no good. Stay away from that one. But the first one is so good. I remember a lot of people just hating on it because, you know, he's a shorter guy and the guy in the book is, you know, much bigger, much taller. But I've never read the book, so I don't care. Like, Cruise makes it work by being a tough guy. But he gets absolutely beat up by these aggro jock assholes in this. He comes home from the orgy, and that's when he wanders in on Kidman, and she's having the dream. Alice is having the dream. And she wakes up and confesses that, you know, she fucked the Navy officer that she was fantasizing about, and she fucked all these other people. And that just like makes him go even worse, even though he was, you know, just at some big fucking orgy out on Long Island.
And that's, doesn't he go back to Domino's?
Yeah, and then he ends up going back to Domino. That's where he's trying to get that sexual encounter with her, and then gets the news that she's HIV positive. You know, he goes to take the costume back in the shop, and then it turns out like the shop owner is pimping his daughter out now. And he says, "Hey, last night I thought you were going to call the police," and he's like, "Oh, we came to an understanding." So it's so much worse. You know, they're like upper class people. And even though the orgy is upper class, like everything else is like pretty seedy.
Pretty scary stuff.
And then even he tries to offering them to Bill. Or trying to offer, you know, Lily Sobieski, his daughter, to Bill. He's like, "Hey, you know, if you like, you can do this."
He's just like, "Yeah, I worked something out. So, everything's all good now. Let me know if you ever need anything." But it's like, he's alluding to, like, the services of his daughter.
Yeah, doesn't he say, like, you know, if he doesn't want to pay the money for the lost mask, he can, you know, like, do something with the daughter?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's so fucking creepy.
Shout out
but
to
yeah,
go ahead.
He Bill lost the mask somewhere. Can't find it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, but even then he's like, "Oh yeah, that'll be like a $25 fee," and I'm thinking that's pretty low for that very like nice intricate mask.
Yeah, $25
for the lost mask.
Okay,
that's not a terrible price for this guy. Is like obviously a rich, well-off guy.
That's $19.99 for you.
I'm like $25, man. What a fuck amount of money. I'm like, yeah, I went and bought sushi and it cost me $25 for like 2 rolls.
I was gonna say, shout out to Lily Sobieski. She's in the Glass House. She's in Joyride. I think she's retired, which is why we don't see her anymore. But she's done some pretty fun work in her time.
That's like another thing where this movie was shot. She looks so young in this movie.
Yeah.
But like, you know, she's in, is it Never Been Kissed?
Yes.
This is a Drew Barrymore movie, right? Which is the same year where she looks so much older, and even though that movie came out before Eyes Wide Shut did.
Yeah, and she looks way different. And then, but in this, it's like she looks like what, 14 or something?
Yeah, she looks like she's 14 in this.
Insane.
And she might have been when this was actually filmed. Yeah, this is only a couple of years from like Glass House and Joyride, which I think both came out within a couple months of each other.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even closer to that, maybe even less than a month. Glass House was one of the first major releases after 9/11. I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like came out like that weekend or the week right after. And yeah, she looks so much older in those.
She does.
She's probably early 20s. Or, you know, like maybe like around 20 years old in those films.
But it's also because Kubrick took so long to make this, right?
Yeah.
Because he started in what, 96?
1996. I have the dates here. Let me look up really quick. began shooting November of 1996. Did not complete shooting until June 1998.
And that's just like wrapping, right? Like the
Yeah,
principal
yeah, because
photography.
then he had like all kinds of post-production work. Obviously, this was June 98. He didn't show it to Warner Brothers until March of 97, or March of 99, excuse me. That he, the week before he passes away.
Crazy.
This movie holds the Guinness World Record for the longest continuous film shoot ever, clocking it at 400 days, including 46 straight weeks of filming.
Impressive. Especially knowing that Kubrick was probably somewhat like unhealthy, not doing so hot within those last couple years.
I don't know, because I've heard kind of conflicting things. I heard everyone saying like, oh yeah, he was in like great shape, good health. At least he seemed that way. He did not seem like he was ill at all.
Oh, okay.
But then there was, oh yeah, you could tell like by the end of the shoot, like that he was like really tired. But I mean, if I shot for almost 2 years, I'd probably be pretty tired too.
And not just continuously shooting every day. We're talking about meticulous 60 takes. And they're like, no, Tom, you're walking through the goddamn door wrong. Do it again.
I heard that him walking through the door was like almost 100 takes.
Yeah. Like, what the fuck? So did he wear himself down because he wasn't, the once strapping lad who could do it before, like all these other pictures where he just, he bit off a little bit more than he could chew, but he had obviously some kind of OCD, something going on that made him do this, right?
Yeah. I mean, that was kind of his style. Obviously, The Shining is kind of notorious for being a really rough shoot, and him being like so hard on Shelley Duvall.
Yes.
Reshooting shit over and over and over again. We talked about it when we did Aliens too, because Rico Ross, who was in Aliens as Private Frost, I think was supposed to be the 8-Ball character in Full Metal Jacket, and dropped out of Full Metal Jacket to do Aliens. And Full Metal Jacket had started shooting before Aliens and was not finished and did not come out until a full year after Aliens had been out. Had been like out in the theater and shown. So, that's close to like a 2-year shoot, or 2 years from the time of shooting through post-production and then finally release. So just, again, like you said, a very meticulous director. But, doing almost 100 takes to someone walking in through a doorway is insane.
Yeah, and then I feel like we watch those and it's sad because we don't see the purpose or why that take was special. Or at least maybe I can only speak for myself, but do you understand what I'm trying to say? I understand
what you're saying, and my question is, what would this film have cost? What would this film have cost if, it was like a less than 10 takes for everything? Because this was obviously when people were still shooting on film.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the budget of this movie if, no more than 10 takes per scene or per shot?
Like let's say a regular schedule, semi-regular schedule.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, granted, you have two of the biggest movie stars on the planet in your film. I don't think that they were getting paid they weren't getting $20 million paydays for this movie, though.
Probably took a considered pay cut because it's Kubrick and they're like, fuck yeah. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it's in my notes here. I don't know about a pay scale, what they got paid, but they had met with Kubrick because Kidman was shooting, I think, Portrait of a Lady, in England. So they went and they visited with Stanley Kubrick, and he was talking to him about Eyes Wide Shut, but made a stipulation that if you commit to this project, you cannot sign on to anything else until we're done. Because he obviously kind of figured, I know my process. We might be here a while. So I can't afford to lose my 2 stars to other projects. So you cannot do something else until we're done. Or you cannot sign on to something else until we're done. And by them doing that, it delays productions on their next films. Because I think they were committed to do the next ones, but those dates were open-ended because they were already committed to Eyes Wide Shut. If I'm not mistaken, it delays the start of production on Mission Impossible 2. And it delays the start of production on, I think, I think Kidman's follow-up is Practical Magic, which comes out in 1998. So it came out before Eyes Wide Shut. Because Eyes Wide Shut took such a long time. The Practical Magic, I think, comes out in 1999. Let me look that up really quick. I'm saying 1998 in my head, but I think it's actually 1999. I think it's like the spring of 1999. Oh, I'm getting some rain over here. And some thunder and lightning, apparently.
Uh-oh.
Oh, Practical Magic came out in 1998. So I was right the first time. Let me see what the release date on it was. October 16, 1998. So, 8 months, 9 months before Eyes Wide Shut. Maybe 10, is that 10 months? Yeah, that's 10 months. Before Eyes Wide Shut. Even though Practical Magic got delayed because of the production on Eyes Wide Shut. Bill has the encounter at the costume shop. Then he goes back to the house out in Long Island. Gets threatened by, the guy that brings the letter out to him that says, "Stop your inquiries now."
Yep. Consider this your second warning.
Yeah. Thinks about going back to the woman whose father had passed away. Was it the night before? Because this movie only takes place over the course of maybe 3 nights. There's the party, there's the orgy, and then it's the final day, like afterwards, where he's looking for everything. So it's, he tries going back to the woman who was coming on to him the night before, thinking, I'm all horned up. My wife is having dreams about fucking other guys, so now I'm going to go and do this for real with other women. But then when he calls that woman's house, like the fiance answers, so he just hangs up. And then that's when he goes back to Domino, tries to see Domino, ends up seeing her roommate. And then that's when he goes and buys the paper, right?
Yeah.
He sees the guy chasing him.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes and buys the paper and goes into the coffee shop. And that's when he sees the article about the woman who died. And thinks that's the same woman that saved me. Mandy, because that's the woman that he rescues at the party. Not rescues, but saves from the overdose. The woman that overdosed in Ziegler's bathroom. He believes that's the woman.
Under the mask, yeah.
Yeah. The one at the orgy that was warning him.
Also, quick fact. That actress was dubbed by Cate Blanchett, right?
Yeah, which apparently was some secret until about 20 years after the movie came out. 2019.
Oh, 2019, okay. It was, according to what I read, I think it was Kidman and Cruise had recommended Cate Blanchett for the dub to Kubrick because of the actress did not have a convincing American accent, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, which we should point out is because this movie was not shot in America. It takes place in New York, but like most of Kubrick's films, was shot in England.
Oh man, the way that they recreated everything and the creativity there is it's really hard to tell if you watch it and you don't know.
Yeah, they were like very meticulous with the streets and like the size of shit like mailboxes and like newspaper dispensers. But it's obviously shot on stages or in England because the streets are kind of weird. There's the rear projection shot with him walking down the sidewalk. That it's only like maybe one shot.
Yeah, because then he turns around the corner and you can clearly see him walking on the
he's clearly walking on a regular sidewalk. But there's that one shot of him walking where he's basically walking on a treadmill in front of a rear projection.
Yeah.
Where he kind of like he claps his hands together because he's frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's in the trailer, and then it's in that scene when he does that. But yeah, that's a rear projection, which is I always think it's kind of cool. It kind of adds a little bit of character to a movie. Like like Pulp Fiction when Butch is in the cab and it's obviously like a rear projection.
Yes.
I know that older movies used to do that because they were shot that on stages and everything, but still it's kind of fun for me to see newer movies where they use those old tricks. Where it's clearly like a soundstage or it's clearly like a rear projection behind them or, outside the window.
They do that in this too. There's rear projection while he's in the car, right?
Yeah. A lot of the shots of him in the cab is rear projection.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, some analog effects. But yes, Kubrick notoriously did not like The Fly, lived in England, shot I think the majority of his films. There's only like the first few of his movies are actually shot in the States, and everything else is shot in England, including Full Metal Jacket. But yes, I wonder did they know Cate Blanchett, a fellow Australian? I'm wondering if Kidman knew her from whenever. There's
something there for sure, right?
Yeah, and then they eventually they recommend her to Kubrick, and that was really before she had blown up big in the United States too.
Yeah, which is probably why it wasn't really common knowledge because people would have been like, "Who's that?" Maybe I don't know.
So we mentioned the climax before, where he goes to Ziegler's house to confront him, and then there's this great scene of with Pawlak and Cruz in the billiards room where Bill's asking all these questions to Ziegler and Ziegler's just explaining about like the orgy and like that was all a show. Like we weren't really going to do anything. That was just intimidation to keep your mouth shut. And Bill's worried about Nick Nightingale and he's asking about that. And he's like, oh yeah, he's back on the plane. He went back to Seattle with his family. He's fine now. But there's something still doesn't feel right. It feels like he's just telling Bill what he wants to hear when it's really like, I think something worse is happening. Or I think, something worse happened to Nick. What do you feel like? What's your read?
Yeah, it kind of feels like he could be trying to just calm down Harford and by telling him what he kind of wants to hear with saying that he's they've sent Nick on a plane back home, and that he's probably banging Mrs. Nick, I think is what he says.
Banging Mrs. Nick. That's exactly the words that Pawlak uses. Yeah, you got the feeling that he's just kind of placating him, and it sounds like there's something a bit more sinister afoot here. But you never really know. And he claims that, oh yeah, that girl just died of a drug overdose. You know, she had a drug problem. You saw her passed out in my bathroom because she OD'd on drugs. But you kind of get the feeling that he's lying.
Yeah, because of, and it all comes kind of full circle with what we saw that he's capable of in the beginning of the movie. Where he was, if it was really that girl, but he had been caught red-handed with her,
Yeah. And by the way, as we mentioned before, Pawlak's great in this scene.
Oh yeah, stills the show.
Yeah, he's very good. And according to my notes, this is a scene that shot like 200 plus takes.
Wow, no wonder Cruise looks fucking so mad. When he's kind of hunched over by the, what is it, like a pool table? And you can just see the fucking, in his face. He's like, he looks
well, also, I don't think he's slept at all in this movie. I think he's been up for like 3 days straight.
Doing lines.
Because he's coming home like in the very early hours of the morning, and he's still a doctor, so he's still doing doctor shit during the day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that climax between those two guys, where he's looking for answers, and he's talking to Ziegler, and Ziegler's obviously more connected than he knew. And that's where it's. I think that guy at the party that gives him the nod is Ziegler. So he leaves there, goes home, and then finds the mask on the pillow. So obviously Alice found the mask somewhere in the house and is trying to get him to tell her, what's really happening here. And then that's when he says, he breaks down crying and says, I'll tell you everything. There's that fade to, that crossfade to her, like sitting there, just like teary-eyed, smoking a cigarette.
Yeah, we don't really get to see him kind of explain everything. It's all...
Yeah, we don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we've seen everything, but he's obviously explained it all to her. And I think the fact that, I think what hurts her the most is she never acted on anything. She may have had the fantasy, she may have had the dreams, but she never acted on anything. But Bill obviously was looking to act on stuff. Just kept getting shut down, basically.
Yeah, where he was, if he had been given the opportunity, he probably would have went for it, but nothing actually happened. So technically, there has been no affair, no cheating, right?
Yeah, but he was definitely looking to make it happen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think, that's what really hurts her is she never acted on anything or never intended to act on anything. He did. I think that's what really hurts her. So then they go Christmas shopping the next day with the girl, and they're obviously in a weird space. And they're talking about, maybe this was I forget her exact words, like not a learning experience. That sounds really dumb. But this was something that we could learn from, and it has one of the best last lines in movie history.
I completely agree.
Where she's like, "Oh, I think there's something very important that we need to do as soon as possible." And he says, "What?" And she says, "Fuck," and then immediately cuts to black. It's hey, get out on top, man. You don't need to have him like sit there and go, "Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. When should we do this?" And blah 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 blah. Nope. That's it. I remember like when watching this movie when it came out, like one of my friends at the theater was like, yeah, that's a great last line. I just like how it just like immediately cuts off right after that.
And then you get those, signature Kubrick slides.
Yeah, he kind of had his own style for the credits, like Wes Anderson does.
Yeah.
And again, I don't think we've mentioned the music in the film. There is an original score, and then there's the really like creepy like piano notes.
Yeah.
That plays, but my favorite piece, and we definitely got lightning and thunder here. It keeps flashing outside. My favorite piece in the film is the classical. It's the jazz waltz that starts that movie off, and it also ends the film.
Yes.
In the credits, that's my favorite piece of music, which obviously isn't an original part of the score. It's a famous classical piece, but I always love that music, and it works very well in the film. But yeah, they obviously have kind of been through this, and maybe their marriage will be stronger, or maybe that's something they can work on. But the one thing they have to do that's they had fantasized about with other people, and that's they need to fuck. Hopefully not in the toy store, but he's just been to like a crazy orgy, so who knows?
He's gonna take her there.
I just can't believe like how quickly he was putting the moves on Domino's friend.
Yeah, and he like unbuttons her shirt and all this.
He's like, he was so horny that it was just, oh, I don't care if Domino's here, like you'll do.
Yeah. And she's not even that mad. She's just like very casual about it. Like, whoa, there's something I gotta tell you.
Yeah.
She's all, you want some coffee or something? And he's all, no, I'm okay.
He's like kind of flirty with the two models, but like once he gets onto this downward spiral, he's like, yeah, I'm like the hottest guy in the history of the world. Like all these women are gonna want to do me. And then again, like he keeps getting denied between Domino's friend giving them the HIV positive news, or the fiance picking up the phone. Nothing is working out. I mean, for the best. If he had acted on his impulses the night before, when the woman's coming on to him, when Domino was offering her services, then that probably would have been the end of that marriage completely. So that's probably for the best that nothing happened. Yeah, he really wants something to happen. So, like I said, I haven't really touched on my notes.
Okay, let's hear some of them.
Do you know who else was signed on to this movie and I think had shot scenes for the film? And is completely missing from the film because they had to replace her.
Oh.
That's Jennifer Jason Leigh.
There we go.
Who is in the movie? She plays the woman whose father passed away, who comes on to Bill. That again was, I think she had shot her scenes and then had to drop out to go and do Existence. How do you say that title?
Existence, I believe it is.
Yeah,
the
fucking weird Cronenberg movie.
Body horror. Have you seen it?
I have seen it.
Yeah,
I'm gonna revisit it because I wasn't big on it the first time.
It is weird,
but I'm trying to do like a Cronenberg rewatch now. So I'll be rewatching that movie. So anyways, she plays the woman whose father passes away, and then she's the one that comes on to Bill. But that was a fun fact that she, like Harvey Keitel, was signed on and then had to drop out. So in order to exaggerate the secrecy and distrust between the characters, Kubrick directed both Cruise and Kidman separately and forbade them from sharing notes. And on the week that Kidman was shooting her scenes with the naval officer for the fantasy sequence, Kubrick had banned Cruise from the set and asked Kidman, don't tell him anything about what you've shot. Just to kind of like foster that mistrust.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
But despite the grueling shoots, Kidman still cited making the film as one of her favorite experiences, and even gave credit to Kubrick for keeping her acting, because I guess at one point she was thinking about stepping away and like just spending time with the family.
Mm-hmm.
And Kubrick told her, quote, "You owe it to your talent not to stop acting." Oh, wow. I'm getting like crazy lightning. I would turn off the light if I didn't need to read my notes. It's really cool. Like we very rarely get like thunderstorms out here, so it's really awesome when it actually happens. Cruise, however, kind of didn't care for playing the role of Bill, but he also said that he would have kicked himself if he hadn't have done the film, because it was the opportunity to work with Stanley Kubrick. And, you know, obviously not something that a lot of people get to do, and who knew that was going to be Kubrick's last film. So he was very grateful for the opportunity, even if, you know, that the whole experience making the film was kind of a drain on him. We were talking mainly about the plot, but this is a Christmas movie. It takes place at Christmas time. There is, like he was known to do, especially with Barry Lyndon, where he was shooting with like candle lights and like using not natural light, but like the lights on set without having to set up actual lights. But all of like the Christmas lights and the Christmas decorations putting off all kinds of light and reflections is really cool. I think the look of the film is amazing.
It is beautiful. I will definitely back you on that one.
Available lighting. That's what I'm searching for. Available lighting, not natural lighting, because that implies like sunlight.
Mm-hmm.
But available lighting, so they didn't have to set up extra lights to light certain scenes, because they would just use like the Christmas lights and use the glow of the Christmas lights to light the scene. I mean, like the party, you know, as he's walking down the street, and you know, Domino's place. Their house has like Christmas lights all over the place. I think that the look of the film is beautiful, but that was you know, another thing that Kubrick was very famous for, and especially in Barry Lyndon, because of the lenses that they had to use, so he could shoot mainly by candlelight and make it seem like it was actually being shot in those times. So after filming is completed, Kubrick goes into post-production, which lasts nearly 7 months. And then, as you said at the top of the show, he screens it for Warner Brothers and Cruise and Kidman in early March, and then he dies less than a week after that. You know, and he dies in March. This movie doesn't open up until July. There is some debate as to how much of the movie was actually finalized. Obviously, there's some post-production stuff that needs to happen on it, but the actual cut of the film, there's some debate as to whether or not this was actually Kubrick's final cut or other things were tinkered with. Where I had read that it was Sidney Pawlak who actually did the final cut of the film. Apparently, Kubrick had a habit of editing his films like up until their release date, and even with The Shining in 2001, like kind of after they had been seen by some public screenings, kind of after they had some public screenings. So, even though Warner Brothers had insisted that what was screened just a week before his death was the final cut, there was still post-production that needed to be done And all of that was probably done without Kubrick's input, but supposedly done in collaboration with his estate based on his notes. And according to Raphael, Sidney Pollack was the one that handled the final edit of the film. How much of this had Kubrick already kind of shaped into what it is, and how much of it was still kind of left undone and was finished by Pollack or by the other people, by his producers. He worked very closely. He had like a personal assistant that he had with him for years, who actually had a cameo in the film as the guy in the red cloak at the orgy. He's kind of the leader.
Oh, that's his assistant?
Yeah, that's the guy by the name of Leon Vitale.
Take off your clothes. Or would you like us to do it for you?
Yeah, that's his assistant. And even, I think his brother-in-law, Jan Harlan, is one of his producers that worked with him very closely. So they probably had a lot of input. So hopefully it's as close to what he would have done.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's still a very curious thing as to, would this movie have been different if Kubrick had lived through, the final cut and the release of the film. But Warner Brothers at least was very cool with, they want to promote the film, but also they're very, very cool with Kubrick's wishes of keeping, as much secrecy around the film as possible. Yeah. That's why you only got that one teaser trailer and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, do I need to know what's happening in this movie to watch it? For me, no. It's got Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, and it's from Stanley Kubrick, so I'm going to watch it. But then, you have some people that you have to tell them the entire fucking plot of the movie before they'll actually commit to watching the movie. Eyes Wide Shut opens on July 16th, 1999. This was apparently Stanley Kubrick's request to have it open in the summer. I don't know why, again. It's definitely not a summer movie. And especially in the Christmas setting, you figure this would play much better coming out like around Thanksgiving or like early December.
Doing the Gremlins thing?
Yeah. Maybe, they were looking at like some of the bigger upcoming releases in the fall and said, we don't really want to compete with that. But like I said before, it's just crazy that this movie came out in July and not November, December. But opens up number one at the box office, $21.7 million. And it was the highest grossing opener of Kubrick's career, and I think one of his highest grossing films ever, period. But that's probably, adjusted for inflation. I'd almost guarantee you that 2001 is his highest grossing movie. Oh, okay, here are my notes. The film makes $55.6 million domestically, a little bit under its budget, but was a bigger hit internationally, adding an additional $107 million overseas to bring its box office total to $162 million. Kubrick's second most successful film in the U.S. behind 2001: A Space Odyssey. Okay. There's no way that movie hasn't made more money. Yeah, at the time that this movie came out, it was kind of, oh yeah, this movie isn't great, and I can't believe that this is one of the masters, or the master that was Stanley Kubrick. I can't believe this was his last film.
What I think it is, or was, is that this film can be very polarizing. And in the same way that we think about something like American Psycho.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that has to really grow on you, and you have to watch it probably multiple times and start analyzing it more, and then you come to, you're like, wow, that's a really fucking good movie, but you might not be saying that right out the gate. And I think that going back to Eyes Wide Shut, that's ultimately kind of what happened. Is there's so much to unpack there, even though it seems simplistic. It's really like, I don't know, it's maybe it was ahead of its time a little bit.
I agree 100%. It even grew on me. I never disliked it. I was always kind of like, yeah, it's good, but it kind of leaves me wanting.
Yeah.
A little bit more. But then as I rewatched it over the years, especially as I got older and matured more, I was like, no, this movie's really fucking good and like really compelling, and I'm way into it. I don't know where I would rank it in his filmography. Obviously, I'm a big fan of a few other movies ahead of this.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it's up there. I highly agree that it's one of the best films of the 90s. That, you know, it's one of the best of 1999, which, as we spoke about last month, was an incredible year. It has some very, very good movies in it that didn't get the attention that they should have. Obviously, we talked about Bringing Out the Dead. So I'm glad that it got a reappraisal, that a lot of people kind of revisited it and changed their tune on it. Initial reviews of the film and some of the marketing suggested the film was an erotic thriller, like you said. So prevalent in the 90s. Stuff like Basic Instinct, Jade, Body of Evidence, Color of Night. But it's actually a complex story about marriage and sexuality. Here's a book that I have that I might have referenced before because it's a Christmas book about, or it's a book about Christmas films. And even films with like a tangent, like just the smallest connection to Christmas get mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
It's a book called Have Yourself a Movie a Little Christmas. It's got Die Hard right on the cover, so I might have mentioned this before. Said that this is a Christmas movie for grown-ups, and that Christmas weaves its way through the film from start to finish. A guy by the name of Michael Koreski of the film journal Reverse Shot said this director, who defies expectations at every turn and brings genre to his feet, was setting out to make neither the erotic thriller that the press maintained, nor an easily identifiable Kubrick film. Our buddy, Roger Ebert, gives the film 3.5 stars out of 4 and writes, Kubrick's great achievement in the film is to find and hold an odd, unsettling, sometimes erotic tone for the Doctor's strange encounters. He means, Dr. Harford. He said the scenes have a dreamlike atmosphere and that the Christmas lights were garish like an urban slideshow. He, however, criticized the studio for using digital characters to block out things in the orgy scene, saying it shouldn't have been done and that it was symbolic of the moral hypocrisy of the rating system and that it forced a great director to compromise his vision while by the same process making his adult film more accessible to young viewers. Michael Wilmington of the Chicago Tribune calls the film a masterpiece and praised it as provocatively conceived, gorgeously shot, and masterfully executed. Kubrick's brilliantly choreographed one-take scenes create a near-hypnotic atmosphere of commingled desire and dread. Okay, here's one more good one, and then we'll jump into some negative shit. So Nathan Rubin used to write for the AV Club, which used to be a great site up until about a year ago. Says the film's primal, almost religious intensity and power is primarily derived from its multifaceted realization that disobeying the dictates of society and your conscience can both be terrifying and exhilarating. The film's depiction of sexual depravity and amorality could easily venture into the realm of camp in the hands of a lesser filmmaker, but Kubrick depicts primary evil in a way that somehow makes it seem both new and deeply terrifying. Here's some negative reviews of the film.
Uh-oh.
Oddly enough, LA Weekly and the Washington Post said the orgy scene is too tame and it was dull. But again, they were watching the theatrical cut, maybe because the digital people were there. That it didn't seem like there was a lot happening. Stephen Hunter, the critic for the Washington Post, said Kubrick is annoyingly offhand while at the same time grindingly pedantic. Plot points are made over and over again. Things are explained till the dawn, threatens to break in the east, and the movie stumbles along at a glacial pace. I don't think so. This is a pretty famous one. Owen Gleiberman, who used to write for Entertainment Weekly, famously hated this movie. I think gave it a D, if I remember correctly. He complained that Kubrick failed to capture the reality of New York by recreating the city on the soundstage, He wondered if he forgot to hire extras. He then wrote, I hope I don't offend the gods of cinema by pointing out that this somber, control-freak orgy, as perversely spellbinding as it is, isn't really sexy. It's a neo-Victorian Aztecs vision of swinging, and Kubrick has nothing in his bag of tricks to top it. In Eyes Wide Shut, the director's famously over-deliberate pause-laden style, verges for the first time on Amateurville.
Whoa.
That, like I said, that was a pretty famous negative review of the film. I remember that one getting a lot of notoriety. And David Edelstein of Slate said it was a strange from any period I recognize. Who are these people played by Cruise and Kidman who act as if nobody has ever made a pass at them and are so deeply traumatized by their newfound knowledge of sexual fantasies, the kind that mainstream culture absorbed at least half a century ago? Who are these aristocrats who limos take them to the secret masked orgies in Long Island mansions? Even dream plays need some grounding in the real world. I told you, the movie has a champion in Martin Scorsese, our director who we covered last month. He was a fan. He ranked it number 5 of his best films of the 1990s list. Again, I believe Heat is on that list as well. And he writes in the introduction to Michael Clement's book, Kubrick, the Definitive Edition, Scorsese says, when Eyes Wide Shut came out a few months after Stanley Kubrick's death in 1999, it was severely misunderstood, which came as no surprise. If you go back and look at the contemporary reactions to any Kubrick picture, you'll see that all of his films were initially misunderstood. Then after 5 or 10 years came the realization that 2001 or Barry Lyndon or The Shining was like nothing else before or since.
Okay.
And that I do agree with.
That's Scorsese.
That's Scorsese's quote on the film.
All right.
There's also some weird debate over how much of the film was finished. Did Kubrick like it? Stuff that we've been talking about a little bit ago. I will read you some quotes there because there's some really crazy ones. Typical Kubrick fashion, there's a lot of Steadicam work in the film.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something that I really noticed on this rewatch. It was like, oh yeah, there's a lot of Steadicam work, and that's been Kubrick's thing that he's done since really The Shining, but even 2001 has quite a bit. And especially when the guy's in the spaceship, when he's running through the centrifuge. Okay, Michael Hare, who co-wrote Full Metal Jacket with him, for Vanity Fair, he had shared a conversation he had with Kubrick shortly before the screening for Warner Brothers. And Kubrick said there was looping to be done and the music wasn't finished. Lots of small technical fixes on color and sound. And, Kubrick was asking, would I show work that wasn't finished? And according to Hare, Kubrick had to show it to Tom and Nicole because they had to sign the nudity releases. And he had to show it to, the Warner Brothers execs. But he hated doing so because, according to Kubrick, the film wasn't finished yet. So that brings up the debate as to, was this the final cut that he actually screened for Warner Brothers? According to his friends, no, it wasn't his final cut. He had to show it to the execs and he had to show it to his stars because they had to sign the nudity waivers for the film. So take that with a grain of salt. Speaking of the Steadicam, Garrett Brown, who was the inventor of the Steadicam and who Kubrick had obviously worked with very closely, especially during The Shining, he said that he considered Eyes Wide Shut to be an unfinished film. And according to Brown, I think Eyes Wide Shut was snatched up by the studio when Stanley died, and they just grabbed the highest number Avid edit and ran off with that as it was the movie. But it was 3 months before the movie was due to be released. I don't think there's a chance that the movie he had in mind, or the music track and lots of other things, it's a great shame because it's out there, but to me, it doesn't really feel like it's his film. How close was that to his final vision? And these stories say that it wasn't his final vision yet. But according to, like I said, according to his brother-in-law, Jan Harlan, I hope that's Jan and not Jan. I think it's Jan. Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing it. Kubrick was very happy with the film and considered it to be his greatest contribution to the art of cinema. Have to disagree. He made one of the most landmark pictures in history, called 2001. That is his greatest contribution to the art of cinema. But I guess every man is entitled to his opinion, even of his own work.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a wild thing to say. Eyes wide shut. It's what I was born to do.
I mean, it's a great movie, don't get me wrong, but no, 2001, it's your greatest contribution to cinema. Nobody is copying Eyes Wide Shut, so far as I can tell, but everyone has homaged and copied 2001. Okay, here's a wild one. Arlie Ermey, who is Gunnery Sergeant Hartman in Full Metal Jacket, said that Kubrick had spoken to him a couple weeks before his death and expressed his unhappiness with the film. I guess he did an interview with Radar Magazine, and Ermey said that Kubrick told him the movie was a piece of shit and that he was disgusted with it and the critics were going to have him for lunch. He said Cruise and Kidman had their way with him, and those are the exact words that Stanley used.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I knew about that one. But I think, was it his daughter discredits that, right?
His daughter and Todd Field both discredited that. I have the Todd Field quote. I do not have a quote from his daughter, but I can read you the Todd Field quote.
Okay.
Todd Field countered Ermey's comments by saying, the polite thing would be to say no comment. But the truth is that, let's put it this way, you've never seen two actors more completely subservient and prostrate themselves at the feet of a director. Stanley was absolutely thrilled with the film. He was still working on it when he died, and he probably died because he finally relaxed. But it was one of the happiest weekends of his life right before he died, after he had shown the first cut to Terry, who's Terry Semel at Warner Brothers Pictures, Tom, and Nicole. He would have kept working on it like he did all of his films, but I know that from people around him personally, my partner who was assistant for 30 years, and I thought about Arlie. He's like, I thought about Arlie Ermey for In the Bedroom. I talked to Stanley a lot about that film, and all I can say is Stanley was adamant that I shouldn't work with Ermey for all kinds of reasons that I won't get into, because there is no reason to do that to anyone, even if they are saying slanderous things that I know are completely untrue. So, whatever the truth to any of these stories are, I don't know, but apparently, according to Todd Field, Kubrick did not have great things to say about Ermey, and Todd Field did not want to slander Ermey by saying whatever Kubrick had told him about and why Kubrick had told him not to work with him on In the Bedroom. But again, this is all hearsay, so who knows? But I just thought those two conflicting quotes were pretty wild. So, that's what I have to say about Eyes Wide Shut. I hope I gave it a good show.
You did, man. I feel like the flow was very, very good tonight, and it was funny. We had good rapport. Not that we don't always, we always do, but tonight I was a big fan, and it was great to be feeling better since our last one, which was Bringing Out the Dead. Great episode, but I was not, my sinuses were not cooperating.
Yeah.
And editing that was so painful for me because I could hear it. And there's not much I could do. Still a good episode, but I was pretty mad about that. Let's plug the best of, our annual best of, right?
Yeah, gonna wrap up the year with our annual best of show. Going to be talking about some of the movies that we watched this year and what was good and what didn't work, and you know what's worth talking about this year. I have a few more to catch up on. Like I said, I'm making Ferrari my priority to see in the theater before we do the show. And like I said, a few more to catch up on at home that I missed early on in the year. So hopefully we'll have some common ground to connect on. There's a couple of movies that I really want to talk about that I thought were fantastic. I feel like I'm one of the few that liked one movie. But I just watched that last week and really fucking liked it. But I know that it wasn't getting a lot of great reviews. So we'll see what you have to say about it.
Okay.
One that obviously I just saw that I recommended to you the other day that I thought was fantastic and easily one of the best movies I've seen all year. And then, maybe there'll be some outliers in there. Maybe the listeners will enjoy what we have to say or what we have to talk shit about, like Napoleon. But always looking forward to the best of show, and we're going to get together next week and do that.
Yes, I can't wait, man. Those are always a blast. Very free. It's cool to kind of have more, let the reins loose and just kind of less structured, I guess.
I always look forward to it because I don't have to spend weeks doing research.
Yes.
So it's like, I can breathe and not have to worry about that.
Coasting.
We will also have a 2024 schedule for you, or at least a 2024 tease as to what we'll be talking about next year.
Yes.
I have to finalize my list, but you and I have spoken about most of them. And I will have that list for us when we get together. And then we'll finalize that and we'll tease that on the show. Once again, I want to say happy winter solstice. We seem to do this on the winter solstice a lot. So I think that's really cool. I mean, this is the Christmas episode. We obviously record at least a few days out so that you have time to edit and get it out by Christmas.
Yes.
But it seems to be the date that we always actually do the record on is the winter solstice. So happy winter solstice to everyone, even though it's past by the time you're hearing this.
On that note, this is Wesley Swanson, Chris Pawlak signing off, saying good fight and good night.
And Merry Christmas.
That's right.
But I too love you. And there is something very important that we need to do as soon as possible.
What's that?